When I was in a business meeting abroad, my husband called me, saying, "I used your savings to pay off my friend's loan." I responded, "You mean the $75,000 I was saving for my startup?" "Yeah." He just bought my silence. Everyone around the boardroom turned to me, stunned. You never think your life's going to blow up during a quarterly sales meeting in a fancy London boardroom. But mine did. Right between the third slide about market penetration and someone offering me a stale croissant. My name's Erica Bennett. I'm 41, a senior brand strategist based out of Atlanta, Georgia. I work with startup companies, helping them find their footing before the world chews them up and spits them out. I'd been climbing the corporate ladder for years, red-eye flights, bad hotel coffee, meetings that bled into dinners that bled into more meetings. It wasn't glamorous. It was exhausting. But it was mine, my hustle, my dream, my future, and I was one good deal away from finally launching my own consulting firm, Bennett Branding. I had the name, the business plan, the logo, the $75,000 I'd saved penny by penny over 6 BR years. Everything was lined up. Until one phone call knocked it all down. My husband, Brady, and I had been married for 9 years. He was funny, easygoing, the guy who'd rather spend Saturday mornings fishing than worrying about 5-year plans. At first, I loved that about him. He reminded me to breathe, to live, to not schedule every second of my life. But over time, it wore thin. His relaxed attitude started looking a lot more like irresponsibility. The unpaid parking tickets. The forgotten anniversaries. The half-baked job changes that ended in awkward, it just wasn't the right fit conversations. Still, we made it work. Or I thought we did. The meeting was mid-morning London time, which meant Brady was calling me somewhere around 5 a.m. back home. I frowned at the screen lighting up in my lap. Brady, home. It wasn't like him to call when he knew I was in a meeting. Something must be wrong. I glanced around the boardroom, executives in tailored suits, assistants tapping quietly at laptops, the CEO droning on about projections. I slid out my phone, answering quietly. "Hey, what's up?" I whispered, turning slightly in my chair. There was a long pause. Then Brady said, "Don't freak out." Which, of course, is the international signal to absolutely freak out. I had to do something, he rushed on. Todd was in real trouble. The bank was gonna come after him. I used your savings to pay off his loan. My brain stuttered. My mouth opened and closed. I felt the blood drain from my face. "You what?" I said, louder than I meant to. A few heads turned in my direction. Brady kept talking, frantic now. "I'm sorry, Erica. I didn't know what else to do. He's my best friend. He's like a brother. I swear I'll pay you back." I closed my eyes, tried to breathe, tried to think, tried not to lose my mind in front of a room full of international executives. I pressed the speakerphone button, leaned forward, and said, very calmly, "You mean the $75,000 I was saving for my startup?" The room went completely silent. Every head turned toward me. Brady paused. "Yeah." I sat back in my chair, felt the cold, hard rage settle into my bones. "Well," I said, still in that terrifyingly calm voice, "he just bought my silence." Dead silence around me. Brady started to stammer, but I ended the call with one sharp tap. Lifted my head. Met the wide, stunned eyes around the table. And smiled. "Apologies," I said, standing up and gathering my notes. "I'll need to step out." You expect interruptions during a business meeting. Someone coughing too loud. A phone buzzing obnoxiously against polished wood. Maybe even a board executive sneaking a look at their smartwatch. You don't expect your husband to blow up your entire life over speakerphone. But that's exactly what happened. My name's Erica Bennett. 41 years old. Senior brand strategist from Atlanta, Georgia. The kind of woman who color codes her emails and owns more blazers than casual clothes. Work was my thing. It was the one place no one could touch me. No one could tell me I wasn't enough or too much. I was sharp, organized, driven. I had saved every bonus, every consulting fee, every little bit I could spare over 6 years, planning to launch Bennett Branding, my dream. $75,000. It was all waiting for me. I was 2 months from quitting my job and signing my first private clients. 2 months. The meeting was held in one of those ridiculous London offices where the furniture probably cost more than my car. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Long marble table. Men in stiff suits pretending to be interested in consumer demographics. I was presenting second. I had my slides ready. My notes perfect. My speech memorized. And then my phone buzzed against my leg. Brady, home, flashing on the screen. At first, I thought maybe he was just calling to wish me luck. He knew how important this was. Knew I had worked my ass off for this. I excused myself quietly, slipping the phone into my hand, thumb poised to decline the call. But something that low, awful feeling that lives in the bottom of your stomach, made me answer. Hey, what's wrong? I whispered, stepping just slightly away from the table. Brady's voice cracked on the other end. Don't freak out, he said. Instantly, I froze. Because nothing good comes after those 3 words. I had to help Todd, he said quickly, breathless. He was in a bad spot. The bank was breathing down his neck. I didn't know what else to do. I straightened, my free hand curling into a fist at my side. What did you do, Brady? I said slowly, feeling every muscle in my body tense. I used your savings to pay off his loan. There was a split second where I thought I must have misheard him. Surely he didn't just say, I'm sorry, Erica. I'll pay it back. I swear. The room around me blurred. The murmured conversations. The clink of coffee cups. The faint scratch of a pen on paper. All of it disappeared into a sharp, shrill ringing in my ears. I turned back toward the table, everyone watching me now. Every executive. Every assistant. Even the CEO. Their eyes locked onto me like they could smell disaster. Brady kept talking, voice desperate. I didn't think it would be a big deal. I cut him off, switching the call to speaker without even thinking. You mean the $75,000 I was saving for my startup? The words cracked like a whip through the silent boardroom. Brady sputtered. Yeah. I leaned forward slightly, my fingers trembling with the force of how badly I wanted to scream. Instead, I said, perfectly calm, well, he just bought my silence. The air in the room changed. You could feel it, this low, electric shift. Like everyone collectively realized they were witnessing something that wasn't meant for public consumption but couldn't tear their eyes away from. I tapped the phone screen, ending the call. Then I slid my notepad and laptop into my bag with slow, deliberate movements. I'm going to need a moment, I said, voice even. No one argued. No one dared. I walked out of that room, heels clicking sharply against marble, feeling like my entire life was hanging together by a single fraying thread. Outside, in the cool, gray London air, I finally let myself breathe. In. Out. In again. And then I called Brady back. He answered immediately, his voice a wreck. Erica, don't, I said sharply. Don't say another word unless it's to explain exactly what you did. I didn't think you'd notice, he said, voice cracking. I thought you wouldn't check until after. I laughed, a sharp, humorless sound that made people passing by glance over. You thought I wouldn't notice $75,000 missing? He went quiet. Coward. You stole from me, I said, my voice low and shaking with anger I could barely contain. You stole the future I spent years building. It was an emergency, he said weakly. Todd's like a brother to me. He was going to lose everything. And now I've lost everything, I snapped. No, you haven't, he said quickly. You still have me. The words landed with a thud in my chest. I felt something inside me fracture, slow, deep, final. No, Brady, I said softly. I don't. Brady went silent on the other end of the line. I waited, counted the beats in my head. 1, 2, 3. Nothing. No real apology. No begging. Just silence. The same kind of silence I realized I'd been getting from him for years. Every time something went wrong, every time he made a mistake and just expected me to sweep it under the rug because that's what love does, right? Cleans up after you. Forgives you. Pretends it never happened. I ended the call without another word. It didn't deserve a goodbye. It barely deserved my anger. I sat down heavily on a bench outside the office building, dropping my head into my hands. The city buzzed around me, cars honking, buses rumbling by, strangers chattering on their phones. All of it so normal. So regular. While my entire future felt like it had just been set on fire and left to smolder. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed again. A text this time. Brady, please don't do anything rash. We can fix this. Fix this. Like he hadn't just ripped 6 years of work out from under me. Like he hadn't gutted my trust with one selfish decision. I didn't respond. Instead, I booked the first flight back home. Didn't even stay to finish the meeting. Didn't care what the board thought, didn't care what my bosses thought. Sometimes you have to walk away from the wreckage before it buries you. The flight back to Atlanta felt endless. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the number in my head, $75,000. Gone. Every time I opened them, I pictured Brady's face, the way he would smile at me like I was his whole world, and somehow still choose to betray me anyway. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the choice. The way he looked at my dreams and saw something disposable. The way he saw my future as something he could gamble with and throw away for his buddy's bad decisions. I landed just after midnight. The airport was half empty, the air sticky and heavy with Georgia humidity. Brady was waiting by the baggage claim. I spotted him instantly, jeans, rumpled t-shirt, hair a mess like he hadn't bothered pretending to pull himself together. He brightened when he saw me, took a step forward. I walked right past him, straight to the car. He caught up quickly. "Erica," he said, panting slightly. "Please, talk to me." I tossed my bag into the back seat, slid behind the wheel. He grabbed the door before I could close it. "I'll pay it back," he said desperately. "I swear. I'll take a second job. I'll sell the boat." You don't get it," I said, looking at him flatly. He blinked. "You didn't just steal my money, Brady." His mouth opened. "You stole my trust," I said. He flinched. "You looked at everything I worked for, everything I built, and decided it was worth less than a favor for Todd." He shook his head rapidly, tears filling his eyes. "I didn't mean, but you did," I said, voice low. "You meant to take it. You meant to lie about it." I stared at him for a long, heavy moment. "You just didn't mean to get caught." I pulled the door out of his hand and closed it firmly. He stood there, hands at his sides, watching me as I started the car and pulled away. No dramatic yelling. No banging on the windows. Just him, standing there getting smaller and smaller in the rearview mirror. And me, finally putting real distance between us. I drove through the empty streets of Atlanta, the city lights blurring past the windows. I didn't even realize I was crying until I tasted the salt on my lips. Not big, heaving sobs. Just quiet tears leaking out like a faucet that wouldn't fully shut off. I wasn't crying because of the money. Not really. I was crying for every late night spent working 2 jobs to save it. For every vacation I skipped. For every birthday I bought myself cheap cupcakes instead of celebrating. For every sacrifice that Brady had thrown away without a second thought. When I got home, I didn't bother turning on the lights. I dropped my suitcase in the hallway and stood there in the dark, breathing in the thick, silent air. The house felt foreign, like it already knew I didn't belong there anymore. The next morning, Brady was waiting in the kitchen. He had made coffee, my favorite, and set it carefully on the table like that would erase everything. He looked up at me with hopeful, bloodshot eyes. "I can fix this," he said. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, the cool anger in me settling deeper. "You can't," I said. He rushed toward me, words tumbling out of his mouth. "I'll work extra shifts. I'll sell my truck. I'll even sell Todd's boat myself if I have to." I laughed, a hollow, tired sound. "You think this is about money?" I asked. He froze. "You think if you hand me a check, everything just goes back to normal?" He looked at me helplessly, like a child who broke something expensive and couldn't understand why gluing it back together wasn't good enough. "I don't trust you," I said quietly. He took a step back, like the words physically hurt him. "And without trust," I continued, "there's no marriage." "But I love you," he said, voice cracking. I shook my head slowly. "I needed you to respect me," I said. "To respect what I built. What I dreamed of." He blinked rapidly, fighting tears. "You were supposed to be the one person in the world who protected that," I said. "Instead, you sold it off like it was nothing." He sagged into a chair, head in his hands. "I messed up," he whispered. "Yeah," I said. "You did." For the next few days, Brady tried. Cooking dinners. Leaving notes by my coffee mug. Texting me pictures of apartments he could move into, proof he was serious about giving me space. But it was too late. You can't unbreak something that shattered at the foundation. You can't build a future with someone who gambles your dreams away. One night, I sat on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, sipping tea, staring out into the dark. Brady came out, hovering awkwardly in the doorway. "Can I sit?" he asked. I nodded. He lowered himself onto the step beside me, keeping a careful distance. "I'm gonna move out tomorrow," he said after a long minute. I nodded again, not trusting my voice. I want you to know I never meant to hurt you." I set my mug down carefully. "You didn't care if you did," I said. He flinched. But he didn't argue. And that, more than anything, told me I was right. The next morning, Brady packed his things. It didn't take long. A few duffel bags. His fishing rods. Some old hoodies he practically lived in. It struck me how little of the house had his fingerprints on it. How much of the life we built was really just mine holding everything together. He paused at the door, bags in hand, looking back at me with that broken expression, the one that used to melt me, used to make me cave. But not anymore. "Goodbye, Erica," he said. I nodded. "Goodbye, Brady. No promises. No see you laters. Just the end." When the door closed behind him, the house felt huge. Too quiet. I sat down on the couch and stared at the empty space where his keys used to hang by the door. For a second, panic fluttered in my chest. The what-ifs. The could-I-haves. The maybe it wasn't so bads. But then I took a deep breath. Let it out slow. And the panic eased. Because deep down, I knew this was right. It wasn't about hating him. It wasn't even about anger anymore. It was about finally loving myself more than I loved the idea of us. The next few weeks were strange. Quiet dinners at the kitchen table alone. Late night walks through the neighborhood when I couldn't sleep. Slow mornings where I didn't have to explain where I was going or what I was doing. At first, it felt like losing something. But slowly, it started to feel like gaining something. Freedom, breath, space. One Saturday afternoon, I drove past the little co-working space downtown, the one I used to walk by and dream about renting an office in once Bennett branding finally launched. I pulled over without even thinking. Got out. Stood there on the sidewalk, staring up at the big windows. The sign in the window said spaces available. I smiled to myself. Not today. Not yet. But someday. Because the dream wasn't dead. It had been stolen. Set back. But not destroyed. And now, if I built it, it would be entirely, beautifully mine. Back home, I sat down with my laptop. Pulled up the old Bennett branding folder. The business plan. The logo. The color palettes. The dream. Still there. Still waiting. I smiled, a small, private thing. Because Brady hadn't taken that from me. He couldn't. No one could. In the weeks that followed, I started putting the pieces back together. Not rushing. Not forcing it. Just small steps. I picked up a few freelance projects after hours, branding work for local bakeries, boutique shops, a yoga studio run by a woman who paid me half in cash and half in free classes. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't the huge launch party with champagne toasts I had imagined. But it was real. It was mine. Brady texted a few times. Little things. Brady, hope you're doing okay. Brady, miss you. Brady, I'm so sorry. I didn't answer. I didn't even open them after a while. Because some conversations don't need responses. Some doors stay closed. One evening, about a month after he moved out, I ran into Todd. Of all people. I was picking up dinner at the deli on the corner when I heard my name. Erica? I turned and there he was, Todd Richardson. The man my husband had chosen over me. The man who had taken my future without even a second thought. He looked exactly the same. Baseball cap. Cargo shorts. That easy, empty smile. Hey, he said, shifting awkwardly. How's it going? I just looked at him. Took my time. Let him squirm. Finally, I said, fine. Short. Clipped. Done. He scratched the back of his neck. I didn't think it would turn into all that, he said, not meeting my eyes. I raised an eyebrow. You mean you didn't think I'd find out? He flinched. I didn't ask Brady to. You didn't stop him either, I said, my voice low and steady. He swallowed hard. No, he admitted. I nodded. Good luck, Todd, I said simply. And I walked away. Because he wasn't my problem. None of them were. Not anymore. I ate dinner that night on my little porch, the air thick and sweet with the smell of honeysuckle. And for the first time in a long time, my chest didn't ache. It felt open, clear. Fall settled in slow and sweet, the Georgia air turning crisp, the trees bleeding gold and red across the sidewalks. My world kept getting bigger. I picked up more freelance clients, slowly but steadily building Bennett branding from the ground up, this time with my eyes wide open. A small business grant I applied for came through. It wasn't the full $75,000 I had saved. But it was enough. Enough to lease a tiny office downtown with chipped paint and terrible lighting. Enough to buy a second-hand desk and a little blue armchair for the corner. Enough to start again. On my terms. One afternoon, about 6 months after Brady moved out, I got a letter. No name on the front. Just my address, written in the messy scrawl I knew too well. I hesitated before opening it. Inside was a check. And a note. Erica, I sold the boat. I'm paying you back, piece by piece. It's not enough, but it's a start. I hope you're happy. Brady, I sat there for a long moment, staring at the check. It wasn't for much. Barely a fraction of what he owed me. But it didn't matter. Because I didn't need his money to move forward. I had already paid for my freedom in full. I didn't cash the check. I didn't tear it up either. I tucked it into a drawer, along with the other reminders of who I used to be, not out of anger, but out of memory. Proof that I had survived. Proof that I had rebuilt. A few weeks later, I had my soft launch for Bennett branding. Just me, a couple of clients, a lot of coffee, and an ugly thrift store, good luck, plant that my best friend Mia had given me. No big party. No speeches. Just quiet pride. The kind that fills you up slowly, like sunlight creeping across a floor. Sometimes I heard things through mutual friends. That Brady was working 2 jobs. That Todd had defaulted on another loan. That Brady was living in a tiny one-bedroom apartment across town. I never reached out. Never gloated. Never rubbed salt in wounds he'd made himself. Because real revenge isn't about hurting them back. It's about living in a way that makes their betrayal irrelevant. It's about thriving in the exact life they thought they could destroy. One Saturday morning, I was setting up a new branding workshop at the community center when I caught my reflection in the window. No makeup. Messy bun. A paint-splattered t-shirt. And I was smiling. Not for anyone else. Not to prove anything. Just because I was finally, truly happy. I thought about the girl who answered the phone in that London boardroom, full of hope and ambition, and the woman standing here now. Stronger. Smarter. Free. If Brady ever thought about me, and I'm sure he did, I hoped he remembered that moment in the boardroom. That moment when his selfishness didn't just cost him $75,000. It cost him me. And some losses you don't ever recover from. Some people you don't get back. I adjusted the banner that read Bennett Branding Workshop and opened the doors wide, ready for whatever came next. Because this time, everything was mine.